Hey everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. I got to be really careful not to piss today's guest off. We've got the strongest man in logistics with us, Robert Bain, and we're going to tap into his lived and learned knowledge within the industry. So stick with us. We got a great episode lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey Robert, what's going on, man?
What is going on? How are you?
Pretty good. I appreciate you coming on today. I'm excited to jump in with you.
Yeah, and I appreciate having me on. Excited to share with everybody and hopefully have some fun.
Fantastic. Well, for those who may not know who you are, if we could start off, just, who are you and what's your role in the industry today?
Sure. So my name is Robert Bain. I've been in the space for going on 20 years now, a variety of asset and non-asset roles. I started my career in Cedar Rapids, Iowa at a small brokerage there, worked at CRST, moved to the Chicagoland area with my family, helped start a couple brokerages, one of which got acquired by Blue Grace Logistics. I ran a private fleet for the Visual Pack Companies, a large contract packaging manufacturing company up in Waukegan, Illinois. I was part of the first group of industry hires at Uber Freight. So kind of helped take that from stealth to $1 billion in about 14 months with a group of incredible people, which is amazing. And then I've been consulting around technology and operations basically since then. So my current role, I'm the director of partnerships and a senior consultant at GLCS. We're a managed IT and technology firm. We're based in Minnesota. We're fully remote. So I live just south of Rockford, Illinois. 4 beautiful children. Austin is 21. Lily is 19. Nolan is just turned 17. Elle is 15. I have a perfect granddaughter who's a tiny terrorist named Violet. She's about 18 months old. And I am the strongest man in logistics.
Love that, man. Well, you've been around. You've seen a thing or two in the industry. This is going to be a good interview.
Yeah, I've been around a little bit.
Well, so I'm curious. Let's dive all the way back. What is it that brought you to logistics in the very first place? Why this industry?
So I think like many people, I fell in by accident. I got out of college. I met my now former wife. We were in college. 5 months later, we were pregnant, so I had to start working right away. And I fell in the hospitality industry, which I love. I love working at restaurants. There is something about breaking bread and preparing a meal for somebody and creating those memories and those connections that is very unique in the human experience. Yeah. However, the downside of working at restaurants is when do you work? Nights, weekends, holidays, all the time you want to spend with the family, especially when you're a young parent. And so I made the decision to go find an office job. And I love telling this story because it's a very me story. If you get to know me pretty well, this is how my life kind of goes. So I show up to an interview. It was an office job. I had no idea what a brokerage was, other than I'd seen the boiler room, and I thought that'd be really cool because I'm like a pale Vin Diesel before the beers. Like, this works. And I went to the interview, and the gentleman interviewing me was a guy I played soccer against in high school. And John and I hated each other in high school. So I'm like, well, this is going to be really interesting. So we went through the process. He had no intention of hiring me, and he told me this years later. But he took me around the office, and this is like a big turning point in my life, which I didn't realize would be. I overheard a woman having a conversation with a client, and she was specifically talking about this SLR McLaren Mercedes they were trying to move. Now, when these cars first came out, they were going on the secondary market for high 7 figures, like $2, $3, $4 million. The sticker price was $750,000. These were not cheap vehicles. But the image she had on the screen that her client had sent her was an AMG 63 Mercedes, a beautiful vehicle, great way to drop $180,000, but it was not the car they were talking about. So I just kind of casually said, hey, make sure you have the right insurance because that is going to be a pain if anything happens. And this woman tore into me like I didn't know what I was talking about, and the client was on the phone and overheard some of this. I'm like, you know what? This is not my circus, not my monkeys. We'll just move on. A few weeks later, I got a job come in, and I like being right. I like knowing that I'm right. So I go over to her desk and I go to ask what happened. Her desk is empty, like empty. All her stuff's gone, everything. And so I ask, and all John says is follow me, and takes me to the VP of operations office and sits me down and says, this is him. And I'm like, oh no, what have I done? And so we introduced ourselves really quick. And what had happened was I was correct. They moved the car. It was moved on an open carrier. Have you ever seen those car carriers on the road, the big, 810 car haulers?
Right.
They moved the vehicle open carrier, and it was right behind the cab. The upper hydraulic failed and smashed out on top of the car.
Oh,
$175,000 damage claim.
that's a bad day.
It gets better. It gets real better because the
No, it
carrier
doesn't.
only had 150.
How much?
Carried 150,000 in cargo.
Oh,
So if you're an intermediary, only 150,000. Yeah. So I think it's a little bit delay and lag. So I'll try to catch it up here.
no, you're good.
So if you're an intermediary and you hire this carrier, you're on the hook for that difference.
Right.
So they had to pay out 25 grand. And during the postmortem, they are asking questions. And she said, I was distracted by the interviewee. He had told us to get the right insurance. And the VP of Ops stops her and says, wait a minute, someone told you to fix this before it was a problem? She goes, yeah, some guy that John was interviewing. And he goes, cool, you're fired. John, hire him. And that's how I got in the industry.
Oh my God. That's wild.
Yeah, absolutely insane.
So you're in the industry and now you've got this title behind your name, the strongest man in logistics. Walk me through where this title comes from and how do you feel this personal branding's really kind of shaped your career?
So the strongest man logistics thing didn't come in till much, much later. I was lifting, I was playing sports. I played soccer my whole life, but really it stemmed from two things. I didn't want to work in ops my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate being average. I hate being, because average to me, and this is so corny, but like you're the worst to the best and the best to the worst. I'm like, I can't live like that. That sucks.
Yeah.
So I started looking for how can I separate myself in this industry. This is a very competitive industry. But I loved it because it wasn't going anywhere. And like logistics, transportation, supply chain, that is going to be in the human lexicon for all time. So I was like, how do I differentiate myself? So, well, if nothing else, like I've got a cool talent. I'm stronger than almost anybody I know in the space. And to be fair, I'm stronger than most people on the planet. So like, okay, cool. I didn't put all that together though. And it's funny enough until 2020. So the whole world shuts down, right? And I'm working for a tech company and, we get and you're in Kansas City. I don't know how tough they were on you guys, but in Illinois, like, man, if you left the house and it wasn't your turn, it got nasty for a little while.
Yeah.
And so after the 2 weeks to flatten the curve that turned into, 2 years, a few weeks into that, I messaged some friends who own gyms and I said, hey, I'll rent some of your equipment. That way you've got revenue coming in and I can still train in my garage. So we did that. I had some of my buddies come through so we could train together. And one night we're training and I'm deadlifting what they call like Gens bands. So I have these large rubber bands on the power rack. And your arms are through, and you're basically everything is aligned. Your shoulders, hips, knees, ankles, those are all one straight line. That is a locked out deadlift. And typically your arms are going to be straight. Even if you have an opposing grip like this, your arms will be fully straight down on your sides. With the bands, though, it creates a lot of extra tension, and so it can throw you out of position, which is the desired effect, is it forces your technique to be good as well as develop speed with your strength. So my left elbow was still cocked a little bit. It wasn't fully extended. And so when I pulled my hips through, I also was curling up. And so I tried to basically 700 pounds. And the distal tendon in my left arm popped right off the bone.
Wow.
Doesn't hurt. When the muscle tries to roll up, that's what hurts.
Really? That's interesting.
Yes. So now the downside of all this is April 29th, 2020. All electives are off. I know there's a bit of a lag here. The internet is not great out in Dixon, Illinois, so I'm working with what I got.
You're good, man.
So at least the download on StreamYard will be fine. So all elective surgeries are off. So I reached out to my doctor, talked to him. He's like, well, the positive is that while this is not life threatening, if we don't operate on this tendon, you can actually lose the tendon and it damages your arm permanently. So we may be able to get something in. Thankfully, a couple days later, our very wise comrade, JB Pritzker, lifted that elective surgery ban. And so more surgeries were open. So got it operated on May 7th. And the reason I tell that story is because that put me in this headspace of like, my life is really jacked up right now. You know, it's 2020. I have experienced the first athletic career. And with this first major injury, now I'm wondering, like, can I come back? Others have, but like, do I have that fortitude to do so? And
right.
Especially with everything going on in the world, I really didn't know. And so I was drinking heavily. I was not taking care of myself. I was really depressed. And I talked to a good friend of mine. He was just being a good buddy. And he's like, hey, man, you're going to get through this. The world is going to get through this. And most importantly, like, you're the strongest guy I know. And you're probably like the strongest man in logistics.
There it is.
Yeah. And that comment, like, for him, it was totally innocuous. He was just being a good friend. And I've said the exact statement so long, for so many years now. You could not have hit me harder with a truck when he made that statement and how that just struck, and it hit my soul. I'm like, holy crap, that's it. And then I sat on that for a year, figuring out what I'm going to do with it. And that's when it came to me. I just put it on my LinkedIn and I got some grief for it. And you know what it came to is like, the numbers don't lie. If they're, and I tell people this all the time, if there's anybody else in the space that can squat 1151, bench 611, or deadlift 705 in competition with judges, I will gladly hand my title over.
Not me. I'm not the guy.
And I tell people this, like, go back to 2022 when I squatted my first 1,000 pounds. I was the 387th person or 381st person to ever do that in human history in competition.
Yeah. That's wild.
So to give you context on that, over 1 million people finish a marathon every single year. Every year. And here I am with that, and now squatting 1,100 pounds last year, I was 87th person to ever do that. And here in 10 days as of this recording, I will be the 19th person ever to squat 1,200 pounds come July 26th.
That's amazing, man. Now, you know, in trucking, especially,
I'm pretty stoked.
In trucking, especially, I feel like, you know, we've heard for a long time about this, you know, push of getting fit and how, you know, how much of a struggle that is on the road. Have you had the opportunity to kind of bridge those two gaps there and really promote that in the industry?
I have in a couple ways. I am a huge proponent of like Michael Lombard and Dr. Mark Manera, what they're doing with Off Shift and with Michael's group. I think what they're doing is incredible, and they are really pushing for folks in the office as well as drivers to stay fit. Also, this is a little bit of inside baseball, but I've been developing something for kind of the road warriors. So the founders, the salespeople, the people that really don't have a chance to take the time and take care of themselves, whether it's nutrition, fitness, they're working out. You know, they'll get a little bit here at the hotel, but they're really not doing as much as they could because, to be fair, like the last thing on their mind is putting a workout together.
Right.
And
that's amazing, man.
So I've been developing that, and that actually will have a soft launch in October. And then we'll do a hard launch here probably in February of next year at Manifest in Las Vegas.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing that. I hope you stay in touch with me on that so we can kind of promote that for you and get that out there. That sounds like it's going to be quite the release.
I love that, man. It's going to be super cool.
You know, the big thing I appreciate about you is you're so diverse in the way you come out, right? Like you've got this shtick in the industry and you're able to put that out there and really run with that. But at the same time, you have this super strong professional background. I mean, you've gone from dispatcher to director and, you know, been through these roles in the industry. I'm curious, how has that kind of transition really influenced your approach to leadership and mentorship within the industry?
That's a great question. So for me, it's always been about humanizing any position I'm in, whether it is a C-level, mid-level, director, you know, whatever. because ultimately, like you're dealing with trucks and freight and technology, but at the end of the day, it's people. People are part of all of it, and the people that have led me and the people that I have led, ultimately, they want the same thing I do. They want to go home to their families. They want to provide a good living. They want to have options. They want to have some, quote unquote freedom, and ultimately, like they're adults and we're adults, and so how I have treated leadership is always to, and I hate this statement because it sounds very religion-y and it's not meant to, but it does sound it, to lead with love. It's a two-way thing where, like, first things first, I love the person because they're a human being. And second is, like, I'm always going in kind of benefit of the doubt. And, like, I love the person, but not necessarily all the actions they're taking, or I love their initiative and we need to promote this somehow. Like, again, everything is about that first, and from a leadership perspective. And then and with that comes hard love too, where hey, like, you have to own everything around you. You've got to create great customer experience. You got to make sure your cash flow is good, because those three things, if they're not in line, your business is going to fall apart. And that's kind of my three pillars of operations. Like, if you can try to put 4 or 5, but ultimately you need those 3 big legs to stand on, right? 3-legged stool, very sturdy, you're going to be fine. And so it's extreme ownership, customer experience, and flow. All those are intertwined. I've actually done entire hour-long talks about that, and I won't get into that too much right now, but just the 50,000-foot view. Extreme ownership is at the seat level and all the way up to the C-suite, where if someone doesn't understand something you explain to them, that means it's your fault for explaining that poorly. You didn't figure out the way to convey your message because you understood it, but they didn't. That's on you. If something goes wrong around you, you didn't plan somehow, which some people go, well, accidents happen. Yeah. Didn't you think about it? You can, and that's one of those things where people, it's a tough pill to swallow. That's why I always tell people, go read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. It is life-changing.
I'm gonna have to check that one out for sure.
Because he gives 6 different scenarios across 12 chapters. Each scenario has 2 versions. There is a world of business where the stakes can be millions of dollars. And then there's the theater of war where the stakes are people's lives. And so people think these are different, but they're actually really not. Where if you think the same way as if lives are at stake, then you save the money on this side. And so it really helps crystallize this concept. And then I pulled the other 2 from the Amazon way. Because I think it's just so important. Customer experience. Ultimately, like, the customer's not always right, but their experience is truth. Does that make sense? No,
it does, for sure.
And so the customer experience is paramount. And Amazon, I think, has done probably one of the best jobs of any organization ever when it comes to customer experience. How you feel about how they treat their employees is one thing, but their customer experience is top tier. And then you have free cash flow. Again, I take this from the Amazon way, where Bezos, for the first 20 years, remember, we heard about Amazon's not profitable. It's not profitable. It's not profitable. And all he would say in his letter to investors, I don't care, because profits on a balance sheet don't mean anything. It's all about our free cash flow. Our free cash flow is what we can spend. It's what we can invest with. That is what matters. Now, obviously, you look at Amazon, and they are one of the pinnacles when it comes to business and how they've been able to lay out, whether it's their distribution, whether it's their supply chain, their products, their web services, their technology, all that. They're one of the guiding lights when it comes to business. So those 3 things, though, again, if you focus it on your own business, everything kind of falls into place, because you have the money to invest in your people. You have the money to invest in your customer experience. Your people are well compensated. They focus on your customers. Your customers love the experience they get with you. They keep coming back, and it all is cyclical.
Yeah.
So that is really like what all these different seats kind of taught me, is that this is the foundation, and then everything else built off that.
Yeah, no, I love that approach. Kind of thinking of that in your role in the industry here. I mean, we talked about your director of partnerships at GLCS, and I'm curious to get your insight here. What technological solutions do you see having the most significant, positive impact on trucking business, especially as they're trying to grow a small fleet? Because, I mean, these guys that are going from company driver all that stuff's covered for them, right? And then they branch out and become this owner operator, and they've got to take a lot of this on as far as, what they're doing in the industry plus running a business. But then when you start growing a fleet, it becomes a much bigger solution, and you've got to start, really thinking into those technology aspects and the back end aspects. And I'm kind of curious to get your insights on that.
So as you're growing a fleet and you're growing a small brokerage, either one of those, the primary driver is going to be your operating system. You can look at that a couple ways. It can be, are you a Microsoft shop, are you a Google shop, or it's your TMS? Ultimately, like where is all the information being stored? Where is it all coming to? Yeah. And because if you have a small fleet, you want to understand who's where's what freight are they on? What's the next step? How are we keeping the wheels turning? Because the wheels keep spinning and we keep winning. And so if they're not, then no one wins. And so that's really, really important. And so that is step one. And those systems also evolve over time. You need different capabilities in your TMS and in your operating system at 5 trucks than you do with 10,000 trucks.
Right.
And so this is constantly evolving, but those are kind of the baseline, because then, hey, are you communicating with your drivers directly? More than likely you are. When you've got a small fleet, it's probably, this little device here, you holler at your boy, holler at your girl, and you get them their information. When you've got 250 trucks, you need a more streamlined process. You need a communication system that's going to be very, very streamlined, very integrated. And not only is it going to get the information to your professional drivers, but it's also going to store that information in a way that is compliant and that we don't have to do a lot of redundant work, whether it is safety, whether it is accounting, operations. So again, those things are considerations, but it starts with that operating system, because that is your baseline. That is what you are going to be sitting looking at on a daily basis. And so again, whether you decide to be a Microsoft, a Google shop, a McLeod, a Trimble, a Alvis, beyond whomever you're going to go with, all those are incredibly important to look at as what those invest. And even if you want to go look at, with Ascend, it may be a less versatile option, but hey, the price tag is right. And so if functionality you need, that is what you build your business off of.
Right. I think a lot of these guys are jumping into that space, becoming that owner operator, having that vision to grow over time. Don't really see this as, a relevant topic to them. But as we see with so many companies, like you get into that baseline and you have to invest in those technology solutions. I think there's an aspect to it. And, I want to get your insight here. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's important to do your research and kind of figure out the right one to start with, because as you do grow with many businesses, it becomes so much harder to jump ship, I guess, so to speak. If you've got a large operation kind of dependent on a platform, it's much harder to move at that larger tier than it is, earlier on in the stage. Do you think that's fair for, somebody in the fleet industry?
Oh, 100%. It is a lot easier to turn a speedboat than a battleship.
Right.
So, and that's kind of how I look at it as you look to change systems, depending on the size of your organization. And so what to look at with that is take the names out, take the reputations out necessarily. Those are important, but that's not important right away. You look at what are the functionalities I need? What is the business I run? Do I run drive-in? Do I run temperature control? Do I run open deck? Am I specialty? Am I tanker? Like, what is it you run? Right. So then what are the capabilities you need to have? You need to look at, all right, what are the baseline things? And then I'm going to say this, and it's not going to sit well with everybody, but it's true. And if you don't think it is, look in the mirror and tell me you're a liar. A lot of folks get into trucking as an owner-operator after having been a company driver for years because they are great drivers. That does not mean you are a good business person.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow.
However,
that's true.
Being a good business person is a learned skill. And so you can become one.
Right.
Just like you became a good driver. And so it's really important to separate those two things. They are not the same. And so there are more things to think about. There are more things to consider. And there is much bigger of a baseline of understanding that you need to have as a business owner than simply a professional driver.
That's a fantastic point, and I think a good segue to talk a little bit about mentorship here, because for these guys that are in that company driver role and then branching over as a company driver, I mean, those companies are varying sizes, but in most cases, they've got a team that worries about a lot of this stuff. When you become that owner operator, you're just jumping in most cases it's you, and you're juggling many hats there. How important do you think it is to have and seek out some form of mentorship in the industry, so you have that firm foundation to build from?
Yeah, so I think that's, and I caught most of that. Unfortunately, again, the connection's not great today, but mentorship is such a important part of any career path, whether it's going to be in a driver's seat, in a dispatch seat, as a leader, because ultimately, like especially this industry, it's a minefield. There's so much that you could potentially step on and blow up. And so I think it's huge to have people that have already kind of been through and they can guide you through that minefield. And who those mentors are, it adjusts and it changes. It's very fluid. I had mentors early on in my career who now I would consider peers, or even some of them I provided some mentorship to. And then I've got others that now that I've kind of gotten to the point that I'm at, and again, I'm not great. I'm not special. I'm just a little farther down the path than some people.
Right.
Now I get access to different folks that are able to help and assist me. And as I look at, what the next stage of my life is with, I'm in my early 40s. I'm now a divorced dad. And now I'm, like, how does my life look now? And so that's a whole different set of mentorship that I'm looking at now. And so I think it's good to get those, and then constantly don't look for ways to get rid of people, but always look at it. Is the mentorship aspect of this dynamic and this friendship still valid and still relevant? There's nothing wrong if the answer is no. That simply means like, hey, like maybe you've grown, you've leveled up, or maybe they've regressed. Your circle is so important, and to keep that. And again, it's not these people are bad. They may have just served the time in your life that they're supposed to serve.
Right.
And so you always look for who are the ones that are going to help out more, but you also never forget those people. Like I think one of the most important mentors I've had in the industry, a guy named Chris Glotzbach. Glotz has been around the industry for almost 30 years. He started at Backhaulers. He was at Robinson, Uber Freight. Now he's the CRO at Parade. Glotz has been an incredible friend and mentor, for almost a decade now. I would never consider myself his peer because if nothing else, I'm a mental midget next to him. But Glotz has helped guide me through so much stuff that there's no way I could have gone this path. And then I've had great help from people like my dad. My dad's had a great career as well between telecom, sales, and insurance and loss mitigation. I've had great mentors between those two and some others.
I love that, man. I love that. Now, obviously, when you're jumping in to become that business owner and especially grow that fleet, finances obviously become a big issue and something you really got to keep track of, because this is one of those industries you can make really good money in, but you can spend a lot of money too. And if you don't really consider that and plan for that, that can really hit your bottom line very quickly. Now, on the tech side, there's a lot of stuff that can help with the finance side, with fuel cards and so much other stuff. Where do you see kind of those baseline things that they need to look for on the finance side to really set themselves up for success when they're trying to grow that company?
That's a great question. And that I hate using the consultant. Like, it depends, but it really does depend. It depends on what your risk tolerance is. It depends on what your starting credit is. For those that don't have a lot of credit or credibility yet, I mean, you could be somebody just came to this country and you've got the CDL and you're kind of trying to live the American dream. There's going to be certain options for you there. When it comes to the different technologies, you're going to want a fuel card that hopefully can provide some security for you, especially as you're growing a fleet. There are a few that are out there that they are constantly working on different safety measures that can identify fraud either as it's happening or right before it does or right after it does, so that the impact to you is minimal, if anything. Again, on the operating system side, you're going to have those capabilities when it comes to communication, when it comes to data storage and integrations. On the maintenance side as well, you're going to be needing to maintain significant maintenance records if you're operating an asset fleet, because there's a compliance piece of that as well, that if for whatever reason there's an incident, you need to be ready to open the kimono because the FMCSA is going to come for you. And so having those things in place up front, and those investments already done. And then when it comes to the capital, certainly the capital is a need when it comes to any business. It's a need when it comes to a brokerage, to a trucking company. There's significantly more capital involved in a trucking company, but it's doable and it's out there. There are folks that are still willing to invest in those industries, whether it is through just traditional financing, non-traditional financing, and finding the partner that takes a look at your business and says, not only can we help with that, but we can provide additional measures that are going to help. Not necessarily a promotion of any of these organizations, but just because I've watched it happen. Folks like Triumph, folks like MS Fuel Card, folks like Revanova, folks like Alvis, folks like McLeod and Trimble, they provide a lot of those additional services that you may not always realize. And so it's huge to, talk to whoever your contact is, those organizations, and, have them really run through the gambit of services that are offered. Because a lot of these things are value add, read free or built into the price. And it's invaluable to have that as a small business owner that, hey, somebody's maintaining all of my IFTA stuff and all I got to do is print out something, upload it to my state, and I'm done. I can tell you, I did IFTA by hand for a fleet of 50 trucks. That would take me 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
So something as simple as that, where it's done for you in a matter of seconds, that is a huge value. And it's included many times in the cost of your fuel card and your fuel membership. So those types of things to look at is where those value add services that give you time back, where you can focus on your core business of moving freight and scaling the business.
Right. I'm kind of thinking here with those guys that are jumping in to basically run their businesses, grow their business. It's a lot to take on. And I'm thinking back to your strongest man in the industry aspect here. And it's really bringing to mind, motivation, determination, that willpower. And I think that really carries across because you got to have those aspects. I mean, even if they're not the strongest men in logistics, to be able to be successful in this business, you got to have a lot of those same mental drives. How do you feel like that can carry across, and how can somebody really reshape their mind if they're not there currently?
I think what's important with that is that motivation does only go so far. It really does. Like, people talk about external, internal motivation, and they are cool. They are important. It is a thing. A couple things that have helped me a ton is spite. I can do all things through spite that strengthens me. I have a lot of people that told me I couldn't do anything with my life. So I think that's important. But then also having just a level of audacity about you that, like, enough people will tell you, like, who says you can be that guy? I say I can be the guy. There is a level of audacity, and I'll take it back to the, being strong and everything. I knew 12 years ago when I did my first meet, I'm going to squat 1,000 pounds in competition. I knew then. At my first meet, I barely squatted 500. Don't get me wrong. Barely squatting 500 is still a great squat. But it's not where I wanted to be. But I had that audacity to say, I'm going to do this. And then when I did it, we got back to the hotel. And I remember sitting with my friend and my coach, Sean. And he said, you know what this means, right? I said, yeah. It's road to 1,100. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so it then becomes this constant, it's not a destination type of mentality. And I think that's where, if people kind of invert some of the thinking of, I have to learn the process to get what I want. Yeah, that's important. But I get the process, and the process gets me everything I want.
Right.
Kobe Bryant embodied that better than pretty much anybody with his Mamba mentality of, everything is about the process. Everything is about learning. And no matter what the result is, I get better at it because I either learn what I don't want or I learn what I do want. I want more of this or I want less of this. And so knowing that means mistakes aren't fatal. That means that, you can have a level of risk tolerance, which you need to have as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as somebody who's going to build something for themselves. But then also, because you learn what you want, you learn what you don't want, you can set a standard that is very, very high, that as you bring other people into your organization, you can see, can they meet that standard or exceed it, or do they fall short? And then you can make decisions if they're truly right for the org. Understand that there's no good or bad people when it comes to a business necessarily. I mean, there's some like people steal money from you. That's not great, but ultimately it is, are they a fit for the org and a fit for the culture or not? And some people are going to be a great fit for some cultures, and they're going to be a terrible fit for others. And that comes from the leader and the standard that you set. And so for the leaders and for those that are founders or those doing their own thing, it comes down to having a bit of spite, bit of chip on your shoulder, and having the audacity to say, I can actually be the guy.
Well, dude, I feel like we have really tapped into some great stuff today. I mean, we've covered a ton, but in your mind, is there anything that we've skipped over that would be important to throw in here?
I get asked that question a lot. Like, what else would you talk about? And to be fair, like, I never really know also what else I would talk about, but I've started to come up with an answer for this. Back in 2016, 2017, had kind of like a bit of a midlife crisis.
Okay.
Because I looked around at my life and I said, okay, I've got this partner over here who I wish no ill will on my ex-wife. Like, she's a great mother, a great friend to a lot of people. Just, that's life, right?
Right.
I had these amazing children. I had this career it's going pretty good, but it's not exactly what I want. And then I've got this powerlifting thing, which is kind of on the rise. And I realized, like, I'm 3 or 4 different people, depending on what setting I'm in.
Yeah.
That's going to catch up with me. That's going to be a problem. And so I went through this like 3-year process of figuring out kind of who I am and what I'm about and what I'm comfortable with and what I'm not. And I realized I'm a couple things. I am an extroverted introvert. So like, I'll go out, I will people, I will do all the things. I don't need booze to go crazy. I'm insane anyway. But when I'm done, I'm back in the room or I'm back at my house. I'm done.
Yeah.
That works. And so I figured that out. I figured out that like, I don't ever need to be the smartest in the room or the loudest in the room, but you're going to always know that I'm there.
Yeah.
I figured out that I like to swear a lot. I'm actually really good. I haven't sworn on this podcast yet. And that's part of how I communicate. And I'm cool with that. And then I also figured out that like me deciding to be who I am is going to make people really mad. Some people, because this is corny, but it's really important to think about that. Like, there are people that get so uncomfortable with you stepping away from the life that they've accepted that they're going to actually make you the villain in their story. And that's fine. I had to come to terms with that part of me stepping out and building the life I wanted also meant saying goodbye to some people, at least in that part of my life. Some have come back, some haven't, and that's fine. And it was hard. It was tough. It was lonely sometimes, but figuring out who I was, being that same person in every environment that I'm in, just at a different volume. I'm a different person in front of my granddaughter, like volume-wise, like,
Sure.
when I'm talking to her. But I'm also the same guy when I'm running a platform or when I'm stepping onto the bar. I'm the same person. Again, it's just different volumes. And I was thinking about that actually a couple of days ago. And one of my favorite speeches of all time, and this kind of crystallizes that bad guy thing and that villain thing. Because if you're going to be the villain in someone's story, you might as well embrace it, right? We all love the bad guys. That's why people love Loki. They love Thanos. They love Venom. Like, everyone loves the bad guys. And if you're a wrestling fan, you'll appreciate this. But Scott Hall, when he was inducted in the WWF Hall of Fame, he did his whole talk, and you could tell like his body's been through the ringer and his mind has been through the ringer with how they go about their business. Yeah. And he says this statement at the end of his speech, and it's one of my favorite ones, and it really crystallizes how I look at my life now: is hard work pays off, dreams come true, bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
I like it.
And so you talk about motivation, stay power, audacity, like, be the bad guy. Someone's going to hate you anyway, so to be the bad guy, because bad guys last.
No, I really love where you're going with there, because,
that'd be the last thing I want to talk about.
Oh yeah, no, it's a good one for sure, and I think it hits on so many different levels. But I think it's a really good level because it kind of blends, right? I mean, when you're jumping out from a company spot to running your own thing, like in a lot of ways, that becomes a huge aspect of your life, and you've really got to put your all into it. And I think in that space, I'm one that is guilty of it for sure. I'm a people pleaser, so I can have
Mhm.
100 people thrilled with me. When I got those one or two people out there that just naysay me or put out bad energy, that's where my focus goes, and it's so easy to
Yep.
lose all your traction over that. But man, I love where you're touching on because that really brings it home and kind of puts it back into a larger spotlight.
Yeah. And listen, like if I wouldn't take advice from them, I don't care about criticism from them.
Yeah,
And also, if you won't say energy in my face, I don't care what you say online.
right.
Because
Well,
let's be
because I
real,
mean,
ain't nobody talking that mess to my face.
yeah. And I mean, honestly, you're never going to please everybody out there. You just can't. And you don't need to.
No. I need to please basically 6 people in my life. That's my
Yeah.
person, my granddaughter, and my 4 kids. That's it.
I love that, man.
So
That brought
doing
it
that,
home.
like if I gotta, yeah, that's it, man. So
Fantastic, man. Well, before we let you go today, I want to give you a spot or a spot here for some shameless plugs, and I want to get you back on another time, hopefully without the delays, because I know it's been tough for the conversation, but I feel like there's so much more we can tap in with you. But let us know, man. How can people get a hold of you, find out more about your business, etc.?
yeah, so email me rbain@glcs.net. Again, we talk about IT, talk about operations, talk about kind of stuff. We have a ton of different offerings that help there. You can follow me on social media on LinkedIn. It's just Robert Bain, Strongest Man Logistics. On Instagram at Bain316 or at Strongest Man Logistics. Shameless plugs to GLCS, my full-time employer, also Ready to Execute, my sponsor. Great friends there, Wicked Wolf Beer Company. Use code Wolfpack to save 20%. Keep your beer sexy. And then, yeah, if you're in the Minneapolis area here on the 26th, come out to Relentless, Minnesota. I'll be posting a bunch of stuff on social media where it's going to be at. Lifting starts at 9, and you might just see history.
Hell yeah. Right on, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule today to chat with us. It's been a true pleasure to be able to tap into that lived and learn experience of yours. And I do hope to get you back on in the future.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody out there, thank you so much for joining in. Make sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe out there. Have a wonderful day.